This is the new Kia Ev6 Gt, and it's a little bit like the martial art Taekwondo because it's Korean with quite a punch. You see, this is effectively Kia's answer to the Tesla Model 3 or Model Y performance. Now I'm going to show you how much of a punch it's got later in the video when I launch it, see how quick it can go from 0 to 60 miles an hour. Now in this video I'll also talk you around the exterior upgrades of the standard Ev6 and the interior changes, plus what they've done to the chassis to make it more fun to drive. Because I'm Matt Watson and you're watching Car Wow. Buy, sell, Car Wow. Let's start this video by talking about the design changes that Kia have made to the GT version. So first things first, you've got your GT badge there and a larger roof spoiler. They've also redesigned the rear bumper slightly. It's fairly subtle, but now the car has this sort of diffusory thing going on there, and these reflectors are vertical rather than horizontal. Here's the rear of a normal GT line model so you can compare the difference. Okay, moving down the side, you get 21-inch alloy wheels as standard with a unique design. And you probably noticed as well, look, what's going on with those brake calipers? Yes, on this GT version, you get this lime green luminous high-vis effect on the brake calipers. Reminds me of a Porsche e-hybrid. Moving to the front, this part here has like vertical slats, whereas on the GT line it would be horizontal. Similar story here, we've got some vertical slats rather than the horizontal effect. Once again, I'm going to show you the GT line model so you can compare it to this. This looks slightly more aggressive, but it's very hard to spot the differences really. One thing I do like about this particular car though is the number plate Ev6 Hot. That's quite cool rather than hot. Price? Well, the GT version of the Kia Ev6 starts from just under £63,000, which is about £7,000 more than the normal dual motor version in GT Line S trim. Here on the inside, there are only a few changes over the standard Kia Ev6. The most notable are the sport seats, which are very comfy, and actually more comfy than the standard seats because those have a headrest which sort of push your head forward into a bad posture position. Not so with these. I prefer them. Also, the GT gets this unique lime green stitching to match the calipers. And also, you've got the GT button there. More on that in a bit. Other than that, it's pretty much identical. So overall quality is pretty good. There are a couple of scratchy plastics lower down, but it does feel solid. Really clever design. I like the way you can toggle in between the infotainment system and the climate control, and you have some physical buttons for the climate control. The infotainment system is okay, a little bit laggy at times, but it's fine. And you've got a big digital driver's display. I also like the fact that you get some really good surround view cameras. Very handy when you're parking, like you can look all the way around the car. You've got a little 3D image of it there. And this feature, which I love, when you indicate, you actually see what's in your blind spot from a camera on each door mirror. Love that. And the driving position as well. It's nice. You see a bit higher up than you would do in, say, a Tesla Model 3, but it's not quite as high as what you'd class as a normal SUV. Sort of just like a slightly pumped up hatchback. What's that beeping? This car is always beeping. It's probably because I'm in reverse. It was wise that it was beeping, otherwise I'd have reversed and knocked cameraman Lewis over. Here in the back, like with the front sport seats, you get a suede effect with the lime green stitching. Other than that, it's just like a normal Kia Ev6, which means headroom's good, knee room's good. The only real major issues are the fact that the seat is quite close to the floor, so there's not much under thigh support, and you can't really stretch your legs out under the seat in front. Other than that, it's fine. Let's move on to practicality and storage space. So the Kia Ev6 has a front boot. If you have the rear wheel drive version, you actually have 52 litres of space under here, but the dual motor versions, because you've got a motor underneath here, have less storage space, just 20 litres. So you're not going to be able to fit your normal charging cables in here, just cables for your phone. It's fine. Meanwhile at the back, the boot is average in size. For the standard Kia Ev6, it's 490 litres. For this high performance version though, there's 10 litres less. It's a bit less space underneath here to store your rear cables. That's because you've got a bigger, more powerful rear motor and it just eats into space a little bit. And that brings us to 5 annoying things about the Kia Ev6 GT. Just like with the normal Ev6, there is no wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which means you have to plug the phone in if you want to use those functions, and your USB ports are there, and so you have to have the phone in this bin. That's particularly annoying with this high performance model, which you're going to be driving quickly because your phone's going to end up rattling about in there as you hoon it around the bends. For some reason, in the UK, you currently can't specify the GT version of the Ev6 with a panoramic sunroof. You can get it on the normal car, but not this high performance version. Don't know whether that'll change in future, but if you're buying one now, that could be rather frustrating. When the Germans do high performance versions of their electric cars, they like to add in some high performance sounds which add to the experience of driving the more expensive and quicker model. Kia could have done that, but they didn't. It makes the same noises as the standard EV6. For some reason, Kia has limited the paint choices on the GT version of the EV6 to just 3. This grey, a black and a white. That's your lot. While the range-topping version of the normal EV6, the GT line, comes with electric seats and standard, for some reason this more expensive GT doesn't get them. They're manually operated. Ooh. However, that brings on to 5 cool things about this car, because you do at least get a quick release system for the backrest, so you can go from upright to horizontal to upright again as quickly as that. Continuing the seat theme, the GT model gets heated seats in the rear as standard. That means that your back passengers can heat their back passages. The car has 5 different driving modes. So you have Eco, and you'll notice that as you scroll through, the LED lights change to match the mode. Normal, there we go, slightly different colour. Sport, oh, it's gone red. And then GT mode, which you have a separate button for. It goes yellow, and that puts the car into maximum attack for every single setting that you can configure. There's also a My Drive mode, so if I go into settings, I can configure things exactly as I like it. So for that, I want everything in hardcore, apart from the suspension, which I'm going to set to normal, which is the softest setting for the adaptive dampers. Perfect. Kia clearly mean business with this car, because they fitted it with an electronically controlled limited slip rear differential, which can send power to the rear wheel with the most grip for excellent corner exiting traction. So you can make the most of that limited slip differential, Kia has actually fitted the GT with a drift mode. To activate it, you need to first put the car into GT mode, then turn off the stability control and traction completely, then you pull up on both these paddles. Drift mode is now engaged. Goodbye tyres. Now let's talk about the most exciting upgrades to this car, and that's to the motors. So they put out a combined 585 horsepower, which is 260 horsepower more than the standard dual motor version of the EV6. You've also got 740 Newton meters of torque, which is insane. Now Kia's also worked on the car's brakes, so they're bigger at the front and the rear compared to the standard car. They've also tweaked the suspension, so it's slightly softer at the front and stiffer at the rear to make the car a little bit more tail happy. There is one problem though. The GT version of the Kia EV6 is almost 100 kilos heavier than the normal dual motor car. It weighs in at 2.2 tons. Now you may have a couple of questions about this car. First one being, why does it say prototype there? Well, Kia sometimes does this thing where they give you a pre-production model to review. So this car will never be sold to a customer, but for all intents and purposes, it's exactly what the customer will get. You also might be wondering that I said the power output was 585 horsepower, whereas here it says 577 brake horsepower. That's because I say metric horsepower, not this old-fashioned English way of brake horsepower. To be fair though, we should probably be reporting things in kilowatts now. Okay, let's see what this EV6 GT is like to drive. I'm in maximum attack mode, and my god, the throttle response is insane. See it like through the bends. Shoo. Oh, it cannot put down its power. Stays pretty flat through the turns. The steering is relatively quick, but you don't feel much through it. Oh, you can't fault the performance, but what you can fault is how it rides over bumps. Oh my gosh. British country roads are generally pretty bouncy, and this thing is just skipping all over the place. So what I've done is set up my driving mode, press the button. I've got everything else in sporty apart from the suspension, which is now in the softer setting, and that is better. Does mean it leans a bit more in the bend, so it doesn't feel quite as sharp, but I'm not being shaken like a Polaroid picture. It's much more composed. Still not as composed though as the normal Kia EV6, which rides on slightly smaller wheels and is also lighter by about 100 kilos. You know, it's quite a heavy car, 2.2 tons. Doesn't ever feel quite as sporty as a Tesla Model 3 Performance. That is more fun to drive. It just is. What's this car like to daily drive? Well, the oomph from the extra performance is really handy when you're overtaking on the motorway. So I'm at 50 miles an hour now. I'm going to floor it in GT mode, and that's 70. You are up to speed. I like that. It is super, super quick. However, one thing you do notice with this car compared to the standard EV6 is when you're going about 70 miles an hour, because you've got sportier tyres, they just seem to create a little bit more road noise than the normal car. Maybe it's the 21-inch alloy wheels as well. So it's a little bit less relaxing. I'll tell you what's also a little bit less relaxing, and that's the range. You see, Kia claims this high-performance version of the EV6 will do 263 miles on a charge, but I'm averaging 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour, which when you multiply that by the battery capacity of 77 kilowatt hours, you get a real world range of 200 miles. Now that's a mixture of town driving and motorway driving. Not going particularly quickly though. When I was driving this thing just in town, it was averaging 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which then would be a real world range of 260 miles. But with a car like this, you're probably going to commute in it, aren't you? Which will involve some faster road sections. You might be better off with the standard car if you want to maximise your range. Now I'm going to launch the Kia Ev6 GT to see how quick it is from 0 to 60 miles an hour. I'm going to start off in Eco mode, where the power output is limited to 293 horsepower. What will be the 0 to 60 time? Let's do it. Fairly sedate takeoff. Building power now though. 6.75 seconds. Let's up the ante. Now I'm going to switch into sport mode, where power is increased to 466 horsepower. What will be the quarter mile time now? Here we go. Oh, much quicker takeoff. Oh yes, that's more like it. Oh, 4.25 seconds. What a difference! But there's still more to come. Finally then, I'm going to press the green GT button, go into GT mode, and now I have the full 585 horsepower. Kia says that's good enough for 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, but what will it be? Let's find out. Got some wheel spin there, blimey, this is another level. 0 to 60, 3.71 seconds. Not quite as quick as Kia said because I lost traction on the front axle, but wow, it's quick. So then, what's my final verdict on the Kia Ev6 GT? Should you avoid it, consider it, shortlist it, or just go right ahead and buy it? Well, I reckon you should shortlist it. It's not the most fun to drive performance EV, but you can't deny it's blooming quick. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like. Do you agree with my verdict though? Let me know in the comments below. If you click on those windows there, you can watch some more videos, and on that box there, you can subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, so make sure you do that. Thanks for watching.